Hi guys, this is Fernando doing another video for the Modern Survivalist. In this case I'm going to be showing you and reviewing the Spyderco Endura 4. But before we get started, I wanted to put things into perspective using this little tool you see here, this little stone. This is scrapper flint from the Paleolithic era, about 50,000 years old. This was found in the Paris Basin. It's a scrapper. You see that this white patina is because of mineral deposits as time went by. Just imagine what it must have been to use this as a knife. Okay, we sometimes get a bit too picky in terms of the tools we have these days. Just imagine for a second what it must have been like to cut and dress an animal using this thing. I'm telling you, it's old, of course, but it wasn't much better when it was first made. These things were almost disposable blades because, of course, you just use it for a while, and this is just stone, flint, so it's not anything you can resharpen or anything like that. Imagine what it must have been back in those days. Alright, 50,000 years later, and well, actually that it was in 1997 I bought this knife. This is a bit of a classic collector's piece of mine. I bought this when I was 17 years old, about to turn 18. 17 years old, I walked into a store in Miami. We were visiting over there. Well, I was visiting. I was traveling on my own, actually, now that I think about it. I walked into a store and boom, I want that knife. The Spyderco Police. Still have all the little paper it came along with. Yeah. Back in the day, 15 years ago. 15 years ago, not anything less. Look what a beauty this knife is. Still works. Of course, I kept it in a box, and it's been not used at all. I think I maybe used it once or twice, but nothing more than that. But it's gonna be a good starter, so as to show some of the advances made. Notice how this knife didn't have an option of disassembling. You didn't have any torque screws. It was just one position for the clip, and that was it. It's pretty heavy, but it is stainless steel, and I like that. I like a handle that's made of such a durable material. This is actually made in Seki City, Japan, and it's ATS 55. It's kind of a ATS 34, give or take. A good stainless steel. But it is a classic on its own right. Now, it does work so as to show some of the advances made and how we've reached this stage where we have the Spyderco Endura 4. We were talking about a steel such as VG10, which is an outstanding steel, usually hardened up to 60 Rockwell. It is easy to sharpen again. It keeps a razor edge. It's such a wonderful steel, especially for people that use it and resharpen it every once in a while and prefer to keep their edges razor sharp. This kind of steel is great. You have a much lighter handle. It's fiberglass injected in nylon, and you have the 4 positions for the screws. So you can basically use any way you like. Tip up, tip down, left or right. It's fully adjustable in that regard. It has some texturing, bi-directional texturing. It's called by Spyderco, and it does work in that way rather nicely. It's a 3.75 inch blade, which I find it to be just enough. I wouldn't like having anything less than that. I prefer a 4-inch blade, not anything less. It has stainless steel liners on the inside, and it has a few holes so as to make it lighter. Very nice knife. It's so compact and it disappears in your pocket. I carried this knife for a good time. You can actually see a bit of, well, how the paint came off from the clip because of, you know, hitting stuff when in the pocket. It is a classic on its own right, and in terms of an everyday carry knife, you can you'd be hard pressed doing better than this, because of the steel, because of the craftsmanship, because of how easy it opens thanks to the bronze washers. The hole, the spidey hole always works well. Most people find it to be effective, left or right-handed. The detail in the craftsmanship is noticeable. You have a nice tip, which allows you to do more detailed work. If you have to cut a bit of skin to get a splinter off, if you have to do any sort of more delicate work. Now, I should say though that this is a kind of thing that as you go on using your knife, you lose it. You lose this sort of precision that you have in this tip. This is a Saber grind blade. I find it to be better than the full flat ground blade, which basically leaves you less steel and gives you a less resistant blade. And it's not as if you're losing anything, because this blade is just as sharp as anything you'll ever see. If you know how to sharpen a blade properly, you'll be able to keep this Saber grind blade razor sharp. And I can actually show you. It's pretty easy to prove it. Shaves hair right out of your arm, as you can easily see. Okay. What else do you want besides being razor sharp? For me, if it's razor sharp, that's good enough. I don't need anything more than that. It's my benchmark. If it's shaving hair off your arm easily, then that's sharp enough. So with a sharp enough blade and having the added resistance to abuse provided by the Saber grind, that's a winning combination for me. I don't need a full flat grind on this type of blade. I much rather prefer having the extra resistance. Now, as great as it is, as well put together as it is by Spyderco, there is still a few things that could be improved, and I'm going to be very specific on that, just in case anyone that has any say on future versions of the Endura. It's basically three things that I would change from it. Three improvements. I'm going to be using a piece of paper so as to show it better. The first one would be the blade geometry. This blade, the only thing I see that it is a bit too much of an ice pick type of blade. It could use a bit more of a belly to it. Just a bit more of a belly. It would make it more useful for other tasks. It would be easier so as to, for cutting food, for preparing a sandwich, for cutting through a bit of bread. So you know, food preparation type of thing. It would be easier. It would be handier for other tasks if you had a bit more of a belly in this knife, and it would also make the tip a bit more resistant and more durable. Having the Saber grind, it is going to be more durable than the full flat ground, but a bit of a more real estate in that blade would be nicer. The second thing would be improving the grip a little bit. If we're talking about a blade that's going to be used for daily carry, there's always a possibility of it being used for defensive purposes as well. And as good as this handle is, because it is comfortable enough for using it in less demanding tasks, you're going to be needing a bit more of a finger guard here. Just not too exaggerated, just a bit more of a finger guard over here. That would make this blade more capable in other tasks as well, and a bit more of an elevation here as well. Yeah, that would be it. That would be, in my opinion, that would be a good improvement to this handle. The grip would be certainly improved by having more of a finger guard in case stabbing and the hand slipping forward, which is, I mean, it's rare, but it is a possibility, and we're talking about making something that is almost perfect, completely perfect, improving over something that is already excellent. Having that finger guard, having more of a finger guard over here would indeed be an improvement in my opinion. Same thing for more of an elevation when pulling back as well. You already have the bidirectional texturing, using the words used by Spyderco, so why not make that statement, that philosophy complete by having a bit more of elevations on both these sides. Other than that, the blade is excellent, the knife is excellent, the steel couldn't be better. There's not much else you could do to improve this knife. The final thing, the last thing I would do so as to improve this knife would be having the clip, having some other kind of finish on this clip. I like the idea, I like it that it's black, that's good, but I don't like it that it's chipping off the paint as you see here. Something like the clip used by the black clip made by Leatherman, that would be an excellent option, because it's like it resists much better than this paint you see here. Let me get it for you and show it. And this is a tool that I've carried with me a long time. This has been in my pocket for years, and you still see that this sort of finish. I'm thinking some form of ionized finish or black oxide finish. I really don't know what it is, but I know it is excellent, and it is very resistant, much more resistant than this paint that is baked into it, or something that clearly doesn't stand up to some significant amount of use. Even a light amount of use, because I haven't used this for decades, just some time, and it's already showing some wear. So those would be the things that I would improve on. Other than that, the steel is outstanding. The VG10 steel is perfect. It's very rust resistant. It's easy to sharpen again, as I said before. A bit more of a belly would be useful in my opinion. A bit more real estate on this blade would be a nice improvement. But again, I'm talking about improvements on something that is almost perfect already as it is. The geometry is correct, not any shorter, maybe stretching it to full 4 inches, but I see how in some places that may be a bit of a legal problem, so that's why maybe they're keeping it just under those 4 inches. The liners on the inside provide that added resistance, which is good. So all in all things considered, it is a classic. The Endura by Spyderco is indeed a classic. I cannot recommend it enough for people looking for a classy, functional, everyday carry blade. So folks, hope you enjoyed this quick review of the Spyderco Endura 4. Please remember to check the other videos as well if you're interested in this sort of stuff, and maybe subscribing as well. Take care and see you on our next video.